Hello and welcome to Portrait of an Editor. I am Francis Lombard. In this podcast, Fabrice Sapolsky returns and we discuss what it takes to get an issue of Mutiny magazine out. Cover his productive relationship with Diamond, what he learned from Kickstarter campaigns, the importance of relationships in comics, and all the exciting things he has packed into issue 2 of Mutiny magazine. A heads up, the magazine drops this month. Retailers should start receiving it the week of 3/23. You can also purchase it directly from Fair Square Comics via their website. So let's jump right into my talk with Fabrice about Mutiny magazine and a whole bunch of other things. Enjoy. Fabrice, welcome back to Portrait of an Editor. It's been a little while since we talked.
Thanks for having me.
Last time we talked was you guys were you're just beginning to put together Noir is the New Black.
Correct.
And you guys put it together, assembled, launched the Kickstarter, seemed to have a successful Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And now the book's available to everybody, right?
Absolutely.
With your Diamond deal, you can get Noir is the New Black. So
we're actually going to celebrate the first anniversary of our Diamond deal in a month. So it's pretty exciting.
Now, you submitted? I saw something recently. The Eisners are coming about. You guys are submitting stuff.
Yes, I did. Stories? I did submit for the Eisners. I submitted in multiple categories. Noir is the New Black. I pitched 3 of the 16 stories for best short story, but also Noir is the New Black as a whole for best anthology. I have Intertwined as best reprint material because, as people know, it had already been printed a few years back by Dynamite, but our edition is better. That's what I will just say. And so best reprint material for Intertwined and best magazine publication for Mutiny.
Yeah. So, and today, Mutiny is the thing I really want to talk about.
Sure.
As anybody who's listening to the podcast, that I like heavy metal is something I got into probably a couple of years ago, and just it reminded me about all the magazines. And then when Mutiny came out, I was like, this reminds me of like when I was reading in the 80s and 90s and just obsessed with comics about all the magazines that were there, and talking about the industry. Doing interviews that, hopefully run a little bit, have some meat to them and get in there and just sort of an attitude. Like I think Amazing Heroes was one I had read and, that was one that was around for a long time. And and then Mutiny, of course, bonus is just playing with the genre, playing with the medium, having numerous different kinds of genre short stories. So, if anybody wants, complaining about what DC, Marvel raising their prices, really, you should be buying Mutiny because you get a lot of bang for your buck. That's one thing. These magazines, like what Heavy Metal's doing and what you are doing, is just worth the price of admission right there. If you don't like this interview, you're going to like this interview or this sort of story commentary on the industry, or all the comics that are there too, all the short stories that are there. So I guess let's just jump right at the first question I had. How do you pull it off? Because my experience with anything that's like an anthology or magazine, there's a lot of work. And looking at the credits, it seems to be like you're a one-man show here. So what is your day-to-day? Well, there's a lot more other people there. There is a lot of great deal contributors and stuff like that. I'm not saying, but keeping all the plates spinning. How do you do that in your day to day?
It's a lot of work. I will not lie. It's a lot of work, and my days are very long, like 12 to 15 days, 7 days a week. That's how much I work. It's like, I have experience. Like when I started in this business, I started with magazines.
Yeah.
So press was my first love. Like I had an equal love of press and comics. And for a very long time, I used to buy dozens of magazines every week on top of the comics that I was reading. And so in 1998, so that's a long time ago, I created my first comic book magazine. It was called Comic Box. It was in France, in my home country. And Comic Box lasted for 17 years. And of those 17 years, I personally oversaw it for 13. I was the editor in chief for 13 years. So it's not like something I don't know anything about. And it's like riding a bike. I know how to make magazine. I know how to make magazines on a budget also, which never hurts. And it's just like, when you know the routine, it's pretty easy to get back into this old sweater and say, all right, it still fits. It can work. The difference here is that Mutiny is a creator-focused magazine, whereas Comic Box was a news magazine. It was not a fan magazine; it was a news magazine about comics. And Mutiny is a creator-centric, creator-focused magazine. That means that when we approach the thing, you were mentioning the industry, it's not so much about industry. It's that you won't find any article on the next Marvel or why Boom or Dynamite or whoever is whatever they are. No, it remains a creator-focused magazine. We'll have the interviews, you will have the project, but it's still very much around creators. And that was very important to me as a creator myself, to talk to my peer and give them the chance to talk to everybody without a filter, without any middle person to kind of like water down the message. It really is an open dialogue. And the way I present Mutiny, I was at a convention this past weekend, and people were always asking the question, what is Mutiny? And I tell them it's the Switzerland of comics. Like it's a place, it's a neutral place. It's a safe haven for creators. It's a safe haven for fans, for collectors who want to have a curated experience of what comics are. There are hundreds of comics that are released every week. Hundreds. How do you choose? How do you decide? And also, how do you discover new talent if you have no idea where to find them? Back in the day, there were talent management, talent development. It's not so much the case anymore because it's expensive, because, the companies have to be productive. They have their own policy. Mutiny is there for that too. It's a curation tool. And it allows us to not just promote the series that are produced by Fair Square Comics, but also give a chance to people. And the same way our motto is comics from the rest of us at Fair Square Comics, it kind of like broadens that message to everybody through Mutiny. So Mutiny for us is a vehicle to expose more of the independent creators, minorities, immigrants, our natural lane. So yeah. But we also give people what they want, which is an access to the brand. Like in issue 2 that is going to be released in March, you have a big article on the story behind Elektra. You have an article on Bad Girls. You have another article. You have an article on MF Ghost, which is a big manga series. So there's something for everybody, and it's like a box of chocolate. I don't know how you would. In French, we would say a pot pourri.
Yeah,
which is like a mix of different things with a lot of great taste.
Where would the article I was just reading for issue 1 regarding Batman, what DC's doing with Batman, where would you think where does that fit in, why is that in that magazine then, the question?
So it's a very good question. So this article actually came about at the tail end of the production of Mutiny #1. Mm-hmm. And me and Lilia, who was our intern at the time and who wrote this article, we were looking at it and we were like, every month there's a new Batman or two new Batman or three new Batman. And so the question, like, how much Batman is too much Batman? Do retailers have Batman ache? And it was more like, because again, I was talking about being creator centric, but we never want to forget retailers. So we went to retailers.
Yeah.
We went to retailers to ask them what they thought about it. And then we added journalists in the mix, which we thought was interesting to get these voices also in Mutiny. And again, even though it's 99% creator focused, having a little window to talk about our friends, retailers, who we need. Without retailers, we can't get Mutiny on shelves. So we need retailers. And we also need to tell them that we love them too. So that's why.
And, it's something that a question now, Mutiny 1 came out. How many months ago was it? A while back.
November. November. It was late November. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a question now that people are asking. I mean, I don't know if you guys started the conversation, but people have been asking, like, what is going, I mean, it must be working for DC. They see their numbers. And the question of how much is too much Batman, as you guys talk about in the article, was asked in the 80s. It was asked in the 90s. Now it's being asked again. I thought I'd be reading Batman my entire life. I don't really read him other than sort of these one-off series that pop up nowadays because I don't have the time. There's other things to read, really. But it's just a question now. A lot of people are vocalizing. I've heard, I hear from other, just fans and seeing on comics Twitter.
The thing that people have to realize a couple of things. One, the reason why these companies are doing Marvel is doing the same with Spider-Man.
Yeah.
You have Spider-Man everywhere. At one point, it was Wolverine. You had Wolverine everywhere.
The Punisher was before,
exactly. And it's cycles. It works in cycles. And Superman in the 90s, it was like when they had like 4 or 5 different series, one every week. And you had the bullet to go through all of them, if you remember that. Like,
oh, yeah.
So it was, those companies are doing that because they're IP focused. Here's another thing that I say often is that as an independent comic book publisher, Marvel, DC, and all the company-owned comics company, they are in a business that is not our business. Their business is to perpetuate and develop their IPs, their brands. Our business is to allow creators to tell their stories and to put them on the market. It's a very different business. There's not one better than the other. Both are legit and have their totally their place on the market, but it's just different. It's apples and oranges. We may share the same medium called comic books, but at the end of the day, we have a different strategy, and it has to be said somewhere. Another way of saying it is having a magazine like Mutiny, where we kind of trump that. Mutiny is a beautiful Trojan horse. Like, you probably have noticed that when we're doing covers, we're asking big name artists to draw covers, original covers for us. But not only that, but we sometimes use the brands. Like in issue 0, we had a Spawn cover from Greg Capullo. We had a J. Scott Campbell cover. We have in issue 1, we have a cover by Derek Robertson on The Boys. These are brands. It's not so much in issue 2. In issue 2, we tried something a little different. You'll see. But these brands are known. They're known more than we are. So having those brands on cover of a magazine raises the awareness around Mutiny, but also around all the independent creators inside the magazine. So if you're a fan and you have no idea who we are, what our mission is, and what Mutiny is, but you know the boys and you like the cover, you will buy the cover. And then you open the magazine and, not only you have an interview with Garth Ennis, another one with Derek Robertson on top of his cover, but you also have many stories and articles about people you never heard about, but you might enjoy.
Yeah,
And
like
it's a way of creating a virtuous cycle within our industry of putting the spotlight where it should be, which is on creators. Like, creators shouldn't be at the bottom of the food chain. Creators should be at the center or on top of the food chain. But how do you do that? You need tools.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like with issue 1 for me, reading the Stephanie Phillips, who I've been seeing, and I know she's doing stuff, I think, for Heavy Metal and some other, and writing Wonder Woman too. I've seen her name popping up in that corner, but didn't even realize like one of her first big comics was the independent Kicking Ice. In your introduction in Mutiny 0, you talk about in Comic Box, especially American creators, because that's what Comic Box really focused on, felt a little more free to be able to express themselves.
That's true.
Did that begin to sort of, this is now taking that realization that you had created sort of a safe zone for people to really talk about Mutiny's sort of you fine tuning, that area of, of welcoming and being of freedom, of being able to feel that you can express yourself and talk about what you're doing?
Well, I don't know if it comes that much into play, because when Comic Box was around, there was no social media. Mm-hmm. There was no internet was like really starting. I mean, it started in the 90s, but like not everyone was online shopping. Not everyone was. It was a very different behavior. And Comic Box was a magazine that you could find in newsstands. So it was a very different thing. It was also a very different country. And speaking of which, the news broke yesterday that Comic Box is actually going to be back on the French market. So people have started asking me, so if Comic Box is back, what does it mean for Mute? And well, it's just that the two are going to coexist. I mean, Comic Box is on the French market and it's going to stay on the French market, and Mutiny is on the American market. It's going to stay on the American market, and we're going to share a little bit of our DNA. Some articles may travel one way or the other. Some interviews might work on the one day or the other, but these are not similar magazines. Again, Comic Box.
Are you involved in Comic Box? Isn't the new version?
Let's say that I'm a kind of a moral authority because I created it.
Yeah.
So I'm involved, as in I'm part of the conversations, but I have zero time to be involved more than that. And they have such a capable team over there that I don't need to be involved. I know that we had conversations about sharing interviews, sharing articles, which we do already, because some of the articles that you saw in Mutiny 0 and 1 and 2, you will see in 2, were actually repurposed from previous editions of Comic Box. So some of them come from there, and they were translated into English for the first time. But that's one of the keys, how you create a magazine from scratch in no time. You use content that already existed, and you just rework it, retool it, and translate it and update it in many ways so that it's suitable and available for the American market. So that helped a lot. So both will continue to exist with their own flavor. But Comic Box, for example, has very little comics in it, and Mutiny has up to 50 pages of original comics from independent creators. So it's a completely different philosophy here.
And now the other thing regarding a conversation about DC pushing Batman, also pushing Superman back in the 90s and stuff, and the ability to find new creators and everything, and what the difference in the industry is, that basically, and I think, growing up reading comics in the 80s and 90s, I definitely got into following creators. I would follow them and stuff. Their names would, and I know the story of John Byrne would add 50,000,
the Byrne 50.
Yeah. So, I don't know if they've gotten away from that. I mean, I don't know if there's some of it, and, the big, numbers, but you've had, as you were talking, I think in your introduction in Mutiny 1 about Substack and the migration to Substack and the migration to Image that occurred a few years back. you're never going to see Ed Brubaker write probably, well, I guess he's writing Batman in animation, but is he ever going to write a Batman comic? Never say never, but he won't be doing it for any length of time compared to what he was producing 10 years ago. You've had this migration away of like big names on the big two's comics. Maybe not. I mean, people, I think, become big names when they end up on one of the big two's comics. But is it different? I mean, as you were saying, because is the industry, it is different enough that you need something like Mutiny to be able to, make somebody a big name, and make a creator, have people find a creator instead of, I'm wondering if my question's even working right now. Do you know what I'm saying?
I think I understand. So let me give you my take on.
Yeah.
There are a couple of things here that I want to throw in the mix because I think it's important. When I created Fair Square Comics, the base was not a theme or a genre in particular or anything like that. The base is ownership. Uh-huh. And we devised a color-coded system that we are pushing with 3 different colors: Fair Square Green, Fair Square Purple, and Fair Square Blue. These 3 colors define the relationship between the publisher, us, and the talent. In Fair Square Green, the IPs are owned either by me or by Fair Square Comics, which is not the same because Fair Square Comics is a family-owned company. It's just me, my partner, and my son. But it's still an entity. You have Fair Square Purple, which offers full creator-owned books from our friends that we welcome to our publishing company as partners. It's kind of like an Image type of deal, but there are differences, as in we offer marketing services and we offer publicity services. So we're actually going to help creators make the book successful, even though we don't have the market share of Image, we don't have the experience of Image, and we don't have the size of Image yet. But we're putting everything in motion to become a great partner for the creators that are with us. And you have Fair Square Blue, where you have Mutiny and you have titles that we're sourcing from third-party publishers and that we import into the United States. It's the ownership defined us. It's really what mattered to me the most, because again, it's a personal story. It takes me back to my Marvel days when I was doing Spider-Man Noir, and like a lot of people are shocked that I'm not credited in the Spider-Verse movie. I don't get any residuals from it. And the little that I get from the sales of North American comics, which are often sold out and not reprinted. Uh-huh. So you can't really count on the big companies to take care of you. It's not their mission. Their mission is to do their business, develop their IPs, perpetuating them, and please their shareholders. There's nothing wrong with that. When you get in bed with Marvel or DC, you know exactly what you're getting yourself into. And if you don't, you have to learn how to read your contract. So you cannot have a moral approach to it. This system has been around for as long as comics have been around, and it will continue to be around. And that's it. That's okay. Now, that's not how I approach things anymore. Because Spider-Man Noir is just 9 issues of my life. I'm not ruling out the possibility of going back to a studio one day if they call, but they have never called back and they are not interested. So they don't get to decide if I stay in comics or not. And I think that for the other creators, the same. we decide if we want to stay in comics. It's a personal decision. And creating my own company was going there and say, okay, what I'm going to do for myself, I'm going to do for others. You know, it's like, it's the golden rule. Treat others like you want to be treated.
You've talked about it in Mutiny.
Yes.
About how you can't make a living in comics. And we've talked about it. I've talked about it with numerous editors about the money that is out there. The money
there's no money.
Well, it's $1 billion industry now when it compared to, it was like, you know, but I mean, everybody's doing it for the love of it, but you know, you can't retire on that. And I know you're trying to make something change, but you're working 12 to 15 hours a day. And you would like to be able to take a break at some point just to recharge and maintain your creativity and your ability to produce quality work. It's just, you have a solution. You're presenting a solution. You've actually, you've really thought about this.
I did.
How will it, do you feel it might be the beginning of a change? I mean, it has to change. It has to change to keep new people coming in. We're all talking about, you need new talent. But if talent goes, well, I can't even feed myself and my children, I'm going to go to something else. To say that, this has been going on, this is how it's been for a while. I mean, even the Image getting unionized. I mean, there seems to be people trying to come up with a new system. Has your system, now that you've had a little while to work it, do you feel there's hope?
I feel there's hope, but look, the problem here is that the market is a lot of people are talking about the 90s. The market is very different from the 90s.
Oh yeah.
It's different because there are less retailers. The book market is way more welcoming for graphic novels. And honestly, like if I look at what's been happening at Fair Square Comics itself, we do better on the book market than we do on the direct market. But I don't want to give up on the direct market. That's why we're doing Mutiny. That's why we're launching a new title, a new collection, I must say, in May called Classified. That will be a deluxe type of short graphic novels, like under 64 pages, under 100 pages. Sorry. And we start with a book by Ibrahim Mustafa called Jaeger that will be released May 18th, but that will be a direct market exclusive. But it's a huge risk with the competition that there is on the direct market. The same way it's a huge risk. It was a huge risk to launch Mutiny. I mean, we did the Kickstarter. Kickstarter did well. We did over $20,000, but we had no guarantee that the people from Kickstarter will move to the stores, and the retailers would welcome us with open arms, which they did not. We have to fight tooth and nails to earn their respect, to earn their trust, and that's fine. Because it's how it works. You need to create a relationship. You don't be like, people forget that as revolutionary as Image Comics was, those names were already known for years.
Yes.
They had proven themselves. Like, people knew that Jim Lee could sell X-Men. People knew that Todd McFarlane could sell Spider-Man, that Rob Liefeld could sell New Mutants, and so on and so forth. So they knew that these people had a potential attached to it. But do they know anything about Fabrice Sapolsky? No, they don't care. So my job is to have them not just care about me, but care about the people that are even smaller than I am. And how do we make them care? By producing quality content, by being consistent, by being there, by keeping an open channel to talk with them. That's how you change the rules. That you change the rules by being close to your market, by being active, by doing the work. And I think that's what we're doing here. And that's the difference, I was looking at the numbers for Mutiny #2 that is at the printer right now. The attrition is 1% from issue 1.
Oh, that's great.
Where do you see that? This is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's already a victory for me. Mm-hmm. I won because that means that what we put in place for issue 2 is as appealing as what we put in place for issue 1. And so now the goal is not just to stabilize sales, but conquer new heights, go in places where there will always be retailers who say, and some are like it, telling it to my face, like, oh, I'm not taking magazines because it doesn't fit the fixtures.
That's what happened to me when I tried to order number 1. They like, oh.
But I said to them, like, look, I respect your store and I respect your fixtures and how you lay out your store. And okay, it's fine by me. But if you put it at the counter, you will sell it in no time. Oh yeah, but we don't have the space. Well, it's like going on a date and you say, oh, I have no time for dating. Well, you make time for the things you like or you want. So you can make space for Mutiny if you like it, but you have to give it a chance. And so I'm happy with how the magazine is developing right now. Sure, I would be even happier with bigger sales, but this is a very tough market with a lot of competition. And look, now the competition is like, it comes from everywhere. It hasn't been lost on you that webtoons, tapas are a thing, and they have now a publishing arm. That means that you will have soon floods of new material coming from these players that are going to come to print because digital is extremely challenging. Just a little side note, Fair Square Comics doesn't do digital. I refuse. I refuse not because I'm against it. I refuse because no digital company has been able to offer me a deal that puts the creators at the center of the equation. It's always tech first. And it's great. It's just not good for my business. Why would I agree to devaluate a product of creators' minds? Why would we want to sell? It's not art, and comics is art. Art is not a product like others.
Yeah.
It's not a simple merchandise. It's a creation. It's a product of the mind. It's a product of the heart. It has a special relationship to people. Like books. We are in the family of books. So we should like have a little consideration for ourselves. Maybe it's the European in me talking. But well, yeah, it's important.
Comixology is doing it too. And all these others have an arm. They Comixology signed the deal with Dark Horse. They all have a publishing arm to get stuff to make these available as printed material.
Because it's the only way to make money. Let's face it. There's no money in digital.
Yeah, they've come some kind of realization because they're doing it somewhere because they feel they're going to make money somehow. There's something there. Where the other way is not really working. Substack's doing it too.
It's a very good example, but it's very different because Substack uses data as currency. So it's a completely different model. And I'm really glad for all my friends who have taken this deal with Substack, but it's also a lot of work. And even though they get an advance and all, let's look at Substack in 2 or 3 years and we'll see.
Yeah. And that's the thing is the element of Substack also left that element of print open. It sounds like, we're going to give you with our grant. Hopefully you'll have the money, but the aspect of printing and going to a print publisher has been left open for the creators to make the decision on where they want to go or, get the books there. So you can get the books, digitally, but the creators have that option. So there must be a reason why, once again, the money, maybe they, keep that carrot out there for the creators, because there's money to be made in print eventually, for them if they don't make it in Substack.
I feel that we're kind of like in the wild west of publishing right now, because you have creators who have a publishing company but don't use the classic distribution model. They're doing Kickstarters, they're creating their fan base, and they're just catering to this fan base, and they're growing organically from there. Like 5, 10, 20. Like, look at what Pat Chan is doing, what Russell Nohelty is doing. These guys are like, they created like really solid companies and libraries of books that they created or they co-created, and they don't have to go through the old model. I chose to go with the old model because I'm old and I'm traditional. Maybe, I don't know, but I chose to go through the old model because of Mutiny. When we started recruiting our partner for distribution, and at the time there was only Orange the New Black and One Hit Wonder, the question was, and I interviewed several distributors, and I chose Diamond because Diamond knew how to distribute magazines. Uh-huh. And that was a huge factor in choosing Diamond. Yes, Simon & Schuster is bigger. Yes, Penguin Random House is bigger, or like IPG, or like there were several possibilities. But at the end of the day, the relationship that I've built with Diamond is great. Like, I always say that, like, I was the first one to shit on Diamond for years, but since we signed our contract and I've worked with them on a daily basis, I am their dude. I'm their poster boy. So I totally switched because they're taking care of me.
What is it about them that you feel makes them better at handling magazines? Because you were talking about getting into retailers and having issues like, oh, it doesn't fit in our store. But, what is it about it?
I think the main misconception about Diamond is to think that it's one company. It's actually a multitude of companies. Diamond Books is not Diamond Comics. They work together. It's the same group, but these are two different entities. So when you speak to the book team, they have a certain strength, and when you spoke to the comics team, when you speak to the comics team, they have other strength. Both have issues and both have strengths, but every distributor is like that. And it's a matter of relationships. It's a matter of connection. It's a matter of building it. What we've been able to accomplish in such a ridiculously short amount of time, to me, is already amazing. Like, we published our first official book in stores in September 2021. And we're having this conversation in February 2022. We have 4 graphic novels on stands and soon 3 issues of a magazine. This is huge for a very small company with no funding. It's just me. So I'm extremely grateful that we have a partner that allows me to still be in business to this day and to keep growing.
So another partner you would have would be your fan base. And you've talked about the work you've done, your approach to engaging with creators and, making the work, of engaging with retailers to get the word out about what you're publishing, about Mutiny and everything. And then you have creators who are supportive of you, who are probably vocal of what, the access you're giving them and also the support, and get, announcing what they got coming out. They're going to do the legwork to get that out. Through your Kickstarter, you probably have a good sense of who's supporting you, of how to make them, I guess, a little more rabid, how they can go to a retailer and go, can you get my book? Can you get this book come in? I will buy it. I'm giving you money up front or whatever, of like, what is, the Marvel has their zombies, DC has their loyalists, etc. But, what about, how do you see the fan base that you've been establishing and what they could do to help get the word out?
I'm not there yet. Let's say that for such a young company, the fact that the books are out and the message is understood is already a success. It's a marker of success. Remember that, again, we've only published a handful of books and a few issues of a magazine in a very competitive market. We have production values that are a little different than the competition because I'm like that. I like my books to look good. So I put a lot more money on it. I print everything in North America, especially in the US, because I want a smaller carbon footprint and I want to keep the jobs here, which is also important to me. Again, as I said, I'm an immigrant and it's important to me to keep it here. And all that has a cost. Our books cost more than competition because all those factors, but also because we want to give as much money as we can to the creators and to the retailers. Like I often say to retailers that are reluctant to pick up Mutiny, that an issue of Mutiny is $15. They will roughly get 45% of that price for themselves. And it's 2 issues of Batman or 3 issues of Suicide Squad or how many issues of Moon Knight. I don't know, but it's like with 1 issue of Mutiny. And so it's money in their pocket that is not hard to get because they will probably buy between 2 and 5 copies of each cover or even as a whole. It's an easy sell. Mutiny is an easy sell. And I can see that at shows, like people stop and ask, what is Mutiny? There's a factor where people react very positively to the project that we're doing, the projects that we're doing, not just Mutiny, but like Noir is the New Black, Intertwine, everything. These are showstoppers. And I know that the retailers that agree to come on board with us and partner with us on these products, they will not be disappointed. They will sell them. And at the end of the day, that's what matters. They sell, they're happy, they make money, they reorder, we're happy, and we create a virtual cycle. It's a question of respect. It's a question of they're not there. I mean, Mutiny is a love letter to retailers, but it's also a love letter to the media. And that's why it's so important to, 1, keep it around and 2, allow it to grow. We're growing with them. They're growing with us. And it's how we do it. It's quid pro quo. And I don't understand what the question was, but I don't know if I answered correctly.
It was just talking about the fan base. That's another element that you have.
So the fan base, Kickstarter is a very interesting beast because technically you're supposed to learn from each campaign and grow from one campaign to another campaign. Mm-hmm. But there's a limitation to that. If you stay in the same lane, same segment of audience, you will do that. Like we're doing Noir is the New Black. We can sell Mutiny to Noir is the New Black because a portion of the audience may be interested in both. But then we did Lady Bird. Mm-hmm. Lady Bird, which is a YA title. And it was the weakest campaign we've ever had. Why? Because the people from Noir is the New Black, the people from Mutiny were not that audience. So you have to restart from scratch and rebuild it. And then the next Lady Bird or the next thing that will be in that audience we can grow from Lady Bird. The same way we grew from One Hit Wonder to Noirs and Black to Mutiny.
Yeah.
Because it's the same kind of audience. So it's very interesting. And Kickstarter is a valuable partner. It is a very important partner. But at the same time, the more you get into their system, the less you understand it, because you don't have access to any metrics. Like you launch a campaign, you do as much promotion as you can, but 60 to 80% of the backers come from the Kickstarter ecosystem itself. And on that, you have no information. You don't know who they are. You don't know what their behavior is. You don't know any data about them. Kickstarter has the keys to their kingdom. And so you're kind of like in the dark, and you have to learn from experience. And of course, they have some tips that help you, but still there's a large portion of what you're doing that is a mystery. That's not saying that I'm going to stop doing Kickstarters. No, we have a Kickstarter in April. We will have another Kickstarter in summer, but it's fascinating.
You don't get
to fascinating.
You don't get to know your audience, your fan base, as well as you would like, basically, with Kickstarter, especially if you're,
because
if you're varying
comics
your genres. Yeah.
Yes. And comics are so specific, so special that it's like every reader thinks the comic has been made for them.
Yeah.
There's a kind of 1-to-1 relationship with the reader. Like, and you probably experienced that yourself. Like when you read an issue of whatever is your favorite comic, you feel it like it was for you. And that's what I like to establish. But it's harder to establish when you have actors like Kickstarter or a distributor or anything, which is why it's so important and it's such a big part of my ecosystem to go to shows. I still do 12 to 15 shows a year because this is where the real audience is. And they come to shows because they're early adopters. They come to discover stuff like the stuff that we put out. So it's very important because you have an immediate reaction. It's like a focus group in real time. If no one takes a look at your cover, it's not the right cover.
Uh-huh.
If no one wants to flip through your book, you have a problem. And you can identify immediately what works and what does not. And in different parts of the country, which is even better.
And you were just up in Canada, and before we started recording, we were talking about your experience up there, where it is really, as you just said, first adapters. That whole con experience is really, truly a first adapter, and you get an instant feedback from people. Now, I completely forgot what we were talking about that led us, let's start recording right now. But you were saying you feel that it's good to go up there because of the networking, and that goes back, as building your fan base, my question. And the best way, that's the great thing about comics is conventions, is that there is
it's relationships.
Wall. Yeah. You're
like a lot of our industry relies on relationships between the editor and the talent, relationship between the talent and the audience, relationship between the publisher and the audience. And all this can sing Kumbaya together. It's very important. I think that one of the reasons, and it's really funny because it feels like there's a new publisher that is popping every week right now in the States, which in a way is very good news, but in a way it's not so much good news because that means that the pie is already small and it gets smaller for everybody every time a new actor comes to play with us. But I think the industry has morphed and regenerated itself so many times that there's kind of a natural selection, but also there's kind of like a morphing type of situation where you see players that are going in one direction. They're trying stuff. I'm glad that we have so many different publishers and different actors on our market, because so much vitality, so much creativity. The people who say, oh, it was better before, they are so wrong. So much talent out there. There's so much content. Now, the problem is curation, because there used to be a time when only bad books would tank. Now good books tank because there's so many good books out there. So, and then it's a fight about marketing, about getting exposure, being known. And of course, it's challenging for me. It's challenging because I'm not Donny Cates, I'm not Todd McFarlane. I don't have that kind of prestige. But the little that I do it my way. And you can't just compare your story to someone else's story. It's just two different things. So I think early on, I accepted the fact that things were going to be complicated and a little harder for myself. And that's fine.
That's turning out to be true.
It is true. It is extremely challenging.
Yeah,
it is challenging. I was talking to Yannick Paquette yesterday, and he said he was looking at my table and like all the books and all the variants and all the things. And he said to me this thing that I found absolutely funny. He said, like, I don't know how you do this. It seems like, how many lives do you have? It seems you always come back from the dead. And it's like, oh, I said, thank you. It's just because I don't give up. I love comics. I can't even tell you how much I love comics. Like recently I was talking to my friend and former colleague, Rob Levin. And Rob said, he said to me, you're crazy because you will be the last one there because you love comics so much. And I said, maybe I'll die on stage. I'll die writing, or I'll die drawing, or I'll die editing, or whatever I'm doing. But look, I moved to America in 2015 to be serious about American comics because it's my first love. And there's no way back. I came with nothing. I started from scratch, and I'm just climbing back up every time. And when I have a failure, I recapture, and then I climb back up again. That's how it is,
You feel because of your passion, you're going to be there for the long term, that having that element as the long term, the long tail, is that when people will catch up to you because you're willing to keep at it for the length that, because as you said, good books can tank nowadays because they just don't find their audience. And what if they were out there for another 6 months and they found their audience there? That your dedication, passion, determination will at least take care of that factor of that you'll be able to find these, that you can be out there long enough for eyeballs to finally catch up with you.
I think so. Look, Will Eisner had a very long career. Mm-hmm. He had a lot of failures. He had a lot of successes. He kept doing it. That's a model here. You can't give up. And if it's what you want to do, there's no way out.
It must have been the thing you wanted to do because he kept coming back.
Exactly. He kept coming back. Absolutely. And how many publishers has Will Eisner buried? Like, not himself, but like survived.
Yeah.
The Spirit has been published by like 10 different companies. And I'm not mentioning all these other graphic novels that have performed well. Some have performed well. Some have performed,
but were discovered later, or found their time later.
Or it was just not the right time,
Yeah.
I'll make a musical analogy. Back in the day when artists would release a single, sometimes the single would not be picked up by the radio. And it would take months or years to catch up with the audience, to click. And that was it. And it's not because you had a failure with one single that you would stop making music. You would stop performing. You would stop even releasing this single like 6 years or 100 years later, whatever. This is how it works. You have to find the moment, and you have to keep hoping to find the moment where your aspirations click with the audience. Mm-hmm. It might not be for everything. It might be for one product. And you would be very lucky to already have one. Now, here's a very interesting thing. When I go to shows, 99% of the people don't know who I am. Even the promoters sometimes don't know who I am. And I've been around for 26 years. That's okay. I have a very unusual first name, a very hard to pronounce last name. And I'm hiding behind a company called Fair Square Comics that no one has ever heard of before 2 years ago. But that said, when they hear Spider-Man Noir, it starts a conversation. Uh-huh. And then I can tell them, all right, so you like that. Let's talk about everything else. And they listen. And it's the only way that you can like create the relationship with the audience, is to find something that will have them interested in what you're doing. I think it's even, I mean, as you know, I'm also drawing, but I'm mostly known as a writer and an editor. And when you're a writer, people cannot react immediately to what you're doing. They have to trust you when you pitch something, and so they're not buying your book. They're buying you. They're buying your personality, your passion, the way you're carrying yourself, and that's what I had to learn. I was a shy kid. I was very shy. But I had to grow up. I had to get it together and go out there and fight for what I believe in. And what I believe in is those comics that I create or that my friends create and I publish through Fair Square Comics. This is what I decided to do. And you can't half-ass it. You have to do it 1,000%.
Yeah, you don't want to wake up in the middle of the night going, "Oh, could I have done more?" You know,
I do wake up in the middle of the night and say, I could have done more.
But then
that's because I'm crazy.
But I mean, just, I realized like in Hollywood with pitching for animation is like, I can't be that shy person. I can't worry about flubbing a word here. Just keep going through it. You have to take on a different personality. You just have to go, You know what? Stop, get over yourself. And also, because what's more important? What, the passion or not pursuing the passion?
Exactly. And there's something that takes me back to what you were saying about, and your question about playing the long-term game. I am playing the long-term game. There's something that I put in the back of my mind that I'm not taking care of right now is media. Like, I'm focused on publishing. Like, if someone comes up and said, hey, I want to do a movie or a TV show or whatever animation about one of your IPs, I'll be glad to have that conversation. But this is not an obsession or a priority. My priority is to make damn good comics, put them out, and have people read it, put it in the hands of actual readers. And that's also something that differentiates us from other smaller companies that are on the market right now. Some are very media focused. They're doing comics because it's a gate to a bigger pool. That's not our case. we want to publish comics first. And if those comics happen to have a second life somewhere else and attract people from other medium, we'll welcome them with open arms, but comics are the focus and number one focus.
I think that's a good attitude, because one thing I learned is that it's always easier to have them want to ask you out instead of going into a room and pitching and trying to convince them they're going to like this.
Yeah,
there's a lot of extra work to convince them to like me. When they
someone
like
very
you
dear
already.
to me, someone very dear to me, who I consider not just a friend but a mentor, Stefan Frank, said to me, "You have to put it out there, and if they want to talk to you, they'll find you."
Yes,
and it's the same thing, and it's the same advice that I give to young creators. Like when they come and they say, like, "How do you break into comics?" And I tell them, "Do your own thing, and someone will find you if they like you. If they like it, and if they like you, they will find you." So it's a very different approach than 20, 30 years ago, where you had to go through the big publishers in order to be seen. You had to pitch and get hired. This is very different right now. There are so many tools at our disposal to shine.
Well, even for us, this conversation talking about, how you can't make any money in comics, but nowadays with all the options,
that's not true.
Well, I mean,
that is not true. You can make money in comics. The problem is not making money in comics. The problem is when you're a small company like Fish Square Comics is, we have to reinvest every penny into the next wave of books. So we don't theserize. We don't keep the money because we put 100% in the books, and we create a cycle. So we need to develop the catalog up to the point where there's some a passive income coming. It's just that we're in the launch phase again. Just 4 graphic novels, 5 in a month. It's just not enough. Like when you have 30 graphic novels on stands, of course you will have income coming all the time, and you're just going to deal with that. The key is catalog. Catalog is the key of everything. Why do big companies can't afford to do stuff, to take chances on stuff? Because they have the catalog. Their back catalog is always there. They keep selling it. They keep them in print. They keep nurturing them. They keep having them discovered by a new generation of readers. When you're a small company and you can only rely on a few books, you cannot do that just yet. I have to build my catalog first. And it's very important. That's why it takes time. You have to be patient, and you're not making money until you do. Again, long-term game.
Mm-hmm. What I was going to say is
by the end of 2023, we will have 12 graphic novels. That will start looking like something.
Yeah, it's going to be when you're at a convention setting up, people are going to have to stop and take notice with that much material there, because
it will be a problem. And I already see the problem. It's like, because right now, even with like what I do as an artist, which is one side of the table, like let's say a 6 to 8 feet table,
mm-hmm.
and what I do as a publisher, just with the 4 graphic novels and the variant covers of Mutiny, people are overwhelmed. What are I going to choose? There's too much. Some people show up with only 1 product or 2 products. Now I show up with like 6, 8, 10. It's just a lot to take in. So, and it's not going to get better. There's going to be more products and more variant covers and more everything. So we're going to have to change the way we're doing conventions, which will cost more money, which will be another dimension. But at the same time, it also brings another audience, and we have to be smart about it.
Mm-hmm. So one thing, I've had you on for pretty much an hour. Let's talk about Mutiny number 2. So
yes,
as I don't know, you corrected me a number of times before we started. There's Mutiny 0, which was kickstarted. Mutiny 1, which came out in November
24th. Yes.
Yeah.
It was sold out the first day.
Yeah.
At the distributor level.
So that came out. You're reprinting that. I heard that
Yes,
you guys,
absolutely. Yes.
so,
We're reprinting it. Will probably be a short run, like 500 copies. But there's demand. So we're reprinting it.
all 4 covers, or?
No, we're reprinting a new cover, which will be a variant, a black, white, and red variant of the Derek Robertson cover of The Boys.
Okay, awesome. So what do you have in store for us in number 2 that is in the printers right now?
Mm-hmm.
I know there's, who knows what the supply line crap that we're all dealing with.
So that is a very, I'm glad you brought it up, because the supply chain has been making my life really complicated. Our traditional printer in the United States couldn't handle. They were late. Like, for example, for the book that we solicited for a release in January, which was One Hit Wonder, I sent the book to the printer early December, and the book was late by a month. It came out mid-February, not because of us, because there was no paper, and it was hard to find. And even the book, I haven't seen it. Like, Diamond has started shipping it to retailers. I don't even know what it looks like, because our box has been lost by UPS.
Oh, great.
So not only you have issues with the printing, and you have issues with the shipping, you have issues all across the line. And this is really complicated. So for Mutiny, our regular printer couldn't handle the production. So we had to start finding a new printer, and we found this printer in Mexico. We're going to print in Mexico, which will be a first. So fingers crossed, I hope it will be good. But even there, like, printers right now, they don't have the capacity because the demand is just like going through the roof.
Yeah.
So between the demand, the paper shortage, the distribution, the shipping issues or transportation issues, it's just terrible. Like, how do you survive as a small publisher? Because of course your business plan is made counting on revenue within month with sharp fixed dates, but if the dates are like constantly moving, how do you do it? And that's one of the reasons why we're struggling, because when products come out late, retailers are not happy. We are not happy, but we're depending on so many factors. Again, like printing, shipping. So right now, Mutiny's at the printer. Officially, it was supposed to come out March 9th. So it's already late, but we warned Diamond. Everybody knows.
Yeah.
And now it's going to be released normally March 23rd. We have 5 covers. We have 4 covers plus an incentive cover. We have the main cover is from Alita Martinez. It's a Kill Bill homage cover. It's all yellow. It's beautiful.
It's gorgeous.
Thank you. We have a Joyce Chin cover, who's also interviewed in the magazine with her husband, Arthur Adams, who also has a cover. It's the incentive cover, the Arthur Adams cover. So it's only available to retailers that order 1 in 10. That means if they order 10, they get 1. And we have a Moritat cover, which is a Moebius homage, because we're doing a feature on Moebius for the 10th anniversary of his passing, which I'm very surprised that I've seen nothing about it so far. I don't know, maybe I have a special connection because of where I come from, but Moebius was a giant. He was so influential in comics, and so it felt natural for us to remember him, to remember his work and what he did. So we have this long feature in the magazine about it, and Moritat drew a cover that is a Moebius homage. That is actually the second most ordered cover of Mutiny #2, behind the Alita one.
Yeah,
Alita's cover is the most ordered cover. It's actually, it has been ordered more than the Derek Robertson The Boys cover.
Oh, it's a great cover, and I was waffling between the two that you just talked about. I was like,
exactly.
I want to go with the yellow one.
And then we have a cover by a newcomer. Her name is Lisa, and she's very important because one, she has a story in Mutiny called Shakespeare's Vampires, but also because we signed her for that book. Shakespeare's Vampires is a Fair Square Comics YA title that will come out in 2023. And so people will discover this story that is basically a Romeo and Juliet vampire style comic. So that's for the covers. Now, for the rest of the magazine, we have content all across the board. We have a zombie story. We have an emotional love story between two robots that is drawn by Megan Huang and written by Zach Chapman. We have what do we have? We have an interview with Ram V. We have another interview with Alita. We have one with, as I mentioned, Joyce and Arthur. We have, oh my God, we have this article in Elektra. We have one Bad Girls. We, I don't know. It's just so many things.
It sounds jam-packed.
It is jam-packed. It's like 100 pages. We're welcoming a new writer. His name is Umberto, and he's going to handle the manga and anime topics. But it's like we're broadening what we've been doing for issue 0 and 1. We're broadening like by including more genres, more topics, more diversity, more everything. It's just like really broadening the concept of Mutiny, which is that place where every genre, every comic, every creator has a place.
Well, the great thing is not that if you don't like one story, is like, here's an opportunity to try it out. You know, you hear about whatever, I don't know, noir, and you're like, I'm not really a fan of that.
We have a noir story, excellent.
And then there's a noir story.
We have actually a sequel. We have a short story from Greg Burnham and Quinn McGowan with a character named Owsley. Owsley is a character that was in Noir's the New Black. And so we have a new tale with the same character exclusively published in Mutiny.
It's the cop from Arkansas, right?
Exactly, the cop from Arkansas. Yes.
Okay. That was
there's a new 6-page story about him in Mutiny #2. So
sounds like it's going to be worth your $15, folks. So go out and get it, order it. It's there. Is there?
And it was the hardest project ever for me. Really.
Is it because
it was really hard?
The supply line issues, or is it just
not just that? It was also like, everyone's busy. Getting the interviews on time was a challenge. Sourcing the comics, the original comics, wasn't also an issue because like you had some creators that say yes and then they say no, and then some others come, some others go. You have to have a good mix. Some needs to be compatible with all. We also have, and I should have started with that actually. I want to apologize to the ladies. We have a overall theme for issue 2, which is released for International Women's Month. So out of these 5 covers, 3 of them are by female artists, and 5 of them have a female lead on the cover. And all the articles showcase female characters. So we tried to do justice to the fairer sex.
Well, I can't wait to see it. Like I say, just reading through it, prepping for this interview, it's just a great package. It's a great magazine. So you have my support. I think anybody listening.
And now I have to work on issue 3, and I'm toasted.
I was going to say, my last question to you: what do you have planned for the next issue?
I can't tell you what I have planned for the next issue because I don't know yet. There are leads. No Future, which is one of my stories, it's going to be back. I mean, we took a hiatus for issue 2 because I simply didn't have the time to write. But I actually wrote it in the plane yesterday when I came back from Vancouver. So the artist is going to have the pages to draw starting tomorrow. Once I clean it up. And I already have one cover that will be a Miss Mutiny cover from Marcus Williams. So that is already that I can guarantee is going to be there because I already have it. Nice. It's paid for. I have it. For the rest, I'm going to take time to take a look at what's on the market and what I want to do. And also, like, in the meantime, I won't really get bored or anything because I have Ladybird, which is my newest graphic novel that comes out late April, to finish and send to the printer. So right now, my priority is Ladybird. Then Jaeger, as I mentioned, the Ibrahim Mustafa book, and then Mutiny number 3.
Nice. So sounds like you still got a bunch of 12 to 15-hour days ahead of you, but.
Oh yeah, and I'm not even mentioning like planning the Kickstarter that will be in April. It will be a graphic anthology of funk music called Weekend Funk. And also we acquired a bunch of books from French publishers that are going to be published in September, October, and February of next year. So it's coming. It's brewing. It's moving. It's growing. Like there's a lot of things going on at Fair Square Comics.
Nice. Well, it's a great. Everybody needs to check this out. And thank you, Fabrice, for coming on.
Thank you very much.
And don't work too hard. Read some comics.
I try to outlive my own expectations.
Yes. Have a good day. And
thank you very much.
Be talking to you later.
Bye.
See you.